ICU nurses can float to any unit. They understand vasopressors like the back of their hand. They're the only path to becoming a CRNA. I've analyzed salary data from Kaiser, Sutter, Stanford. I've looked at travel nurse rates from AMN Healthcare. I've compared contrasts across California. The truth might break some of your beliefs. And I love ICU nurses. I'm not here to bash ICU nurses at all. If you need extra cash, pick up extra shifts anywhere. When a patient crashes, they know exactly what's happening. More than nurses in any other specialty. They're reading ABGs. They're managing vents. They get to work with crazy technical procedures and treatment methods like ECMO, which is basically an artificial heart and lungs outside of the body. Balloon pumps that help patients when their hearts are failing. Continuous dialysis machines. Equipment that costs more than your house. But most importantly, they're the only nurses who can become CRNAs, who make well over $200,000 a year in any state. So yeah, ICU nurses have a lot going for them. The skills, the knowledge, the opportunities. But there's one thing they don't have: more money per hour. They make the exact same money as Med-Surg nurses. I analyzed nurse union contracts and their salaries from the top paying hospitals in the country. An ICU nurse with 5 years of experience at Kaiser Sacramento makes $99.80 an hour. But a Med-Surg nurse with 5 years of experience at Kaiser Sacramento also makes $99.80 an hour. It's the exact same pay. Even Glassdoor confirms it. The national median for ICU nurses is $96,000. For Med-Surg nurses, it's $95,000. And before anyone says Med-Surg is easier, let me stop you right there. Med-Surg nurses handle 5, 6, sometimes 9 patients per shift. ICU nurses usually get 2 patients, maybe 3 on a bad day. They have different challenges and yet get paid pretty much the same. That tiny $1,000 difference in the national data is not from the higher hourly rates. That's most likely from ICU nurses having more opportunities to pick up overtime because they can float to more units. Think about this: more training, more certifications, more liability, ACLS, PALS, CCRN, TNCC, thousands of dollars in certifications for those who don't have their hospital cover the cost of those certifications. Same base paycheck. I just pulled the latest data from AMN Healthcare. Travel ICU nurses in Walnut Creek, California earn $2,833 to $3,122 per week. Guess what travel Med-Surg nurses make in the same area? But look at this. Specialty nurses that require less critical care skills are making more. Cath lab nurses in Mountain View earn $3,332 to $3,672 per week. And PACU nurses in Santa Clara also $3,275 to $3,609 per week. You see that? A PACU nurse who takes care of stable post-op patients makes more than an ICU nurse managing multiple drips on a dying patient. Even case managers who don't even work at the bedside are pulling $3,136 to $3,456 per week in California. The fact is that ICU skills don't equal ICU pay. ICU nurses aren't forced to float anywhere. They have the option to. And that's actually an advantage. If you want extra money, they're short in PACU, ICU nurses can pick up that overtime if they want. Need help in the ER, ICU nurses qualify if they're interested. Cath lab needs coverage, ICU nurses can do it. Tele, step down, even Med-Surg, ICU nurses can do it all. But if you're a Med-Surg nurse, you're limited. You can't go to the ICU, you can't go to PACU, you can't help in the cath lab. You have fewer overtime opportunities if you want it. Nobody's making ICU nurses float, but when you want extra shifts, you've got options. Med-Surg nurses don't. That flexibility is a pure advantage. If you want OT, you can get it almost anywhere. If you don't want it, you just work your regular shifts. So let me list the ICU skills that add $0 to your paycheck. If you're managing ventilators, you have complex skills, you get the same pay as passing pills. If you're titrating multiple vasopressors, one wrong dose and they're dead. The same pay as wound care nurses. CRRT management, these nurses are also managing patients on ECMO. Nurses here working in the ICU, managing these patients get the same pay as nurses giving medications. You spend years becoming an expert in critical care, getting certified like the CCRN, which costs about $400 to take and requires tons of studying. This proves that you're an expert as an ICU nurse, and your paycheck after getting your CCRN, it's basically identical to new grads on Med-Surg with 0 certifications. The only, and I mean only time those ICU skills translate to more money is if you use them as a stepping stone to becoming a CRNA. Let me show you the brutal math that every ICU nurse needs to see. The average RN salary nationally is $91,445. On the other hand, the average CRNA salary is $208,197. CRNA, that's Certified Registered Nurse Anesthetist, for those of you who don't know. They're the nurses who put you to sleep for surgery. These are advanced practice nurses who make just as much as many doctors. That's $116,753 more than a regular RN per year, not per decade, per year. But here's the real journey that it takes to become a CRNA. Years 1 to 2, you're in the ICU, building experience, getting your CCRN, making your $91,000 while coding patients at 3 a.m. CRNA schools require ICU experience, no exceptions. In years 3 to 5, you're in CRNA school. Your income is 0, actually negative, because you're taking out $100,000 to $150,000 in loans. You're studying 60 to 80 hours a week, and you have clinical rotations where you work for free. You're living on ramen like you're 22 again. 3 years of your life gone, while your Med-Surg friends are buying houses. In year 6, you graduate, you're a CRNA. Your first year salary is $208,000. You just made back your entire tuition in 1 year. By year 7, you've recovered all your costs and you're banking an extra $116,000 a year. At the 10-year mark, you're $1 million ahead. Over a 20-year career, that's $2.3 million extra. But here's the kicker, 78% of ICU nurses never go to CRNA school. They're doing all that ICU stress for nothing extra. Here's what the smart ones do, and I mean the really smart ones. They get ICU experience in states like California or New York, good experience, union protection, decent pay while building the resume. Then they apply to CRNA school in cheaper states. Arkansas, Alabama, Iowa, lower tuition, lower cost of living during school, and they save an extra $50,000 just on tuition. Then, and this is where it gets genius, they work as CRNAs in states with high pay but low cost of living. Iowa CRNAs average $233,000. The median home price is $200,000. North Dakota CRNAs make $235,000. You can buy a mansion for $300,000 in North Dakota. Louisiana CRNAs make $229,000, where the housing costs are half of Sacramento's. Compare that to California RNs making $137,000 a year with $1 million homes. My friend did exactly this. He was an ICU nurse at UCSF. He went to CRNA school in Tennessee, and he's now working in Florida, making $260,000 a year. He just bought a 4,000 square foot house in cash. I want to be crystal clear about something. Med-Surg nursing is not easy. I've worked tele. Monica works tele but has been floated to Med-Surg. I have friends who work ICU and have been floated to Med-Surg. ICU nurses hate floating to Med-Surg. The ratios. ICU nurses get 1 to 2. Med-Surg nurses get 1 to 5 on a good day. 1 to 6 or 1 to 7 normally, and I've seen as much as 1 to 9. Med-Surg nurses are managing more patients than an ICU nurse could imagine. Different kind of hard, but still hard as hell. When I say experienced ICU nurses are leaving for other units, I'm not saying those units are easier. I'm saying they're choosing different challenges for the same pay. Some go to procedural areas, cath lab, IR, interventional radiology, Monday through Friday, no nights, no weekends. Some to PACU, stable patients, predictable outcomes. Some to outpatient, home for dinner every night. Some, yes to Med-Surg because they'd rather manage 6 stable patients than watch 2 patients die slow, painful deaths while the family demands miracles to happen. If you're thinking about ICU, I need you to ask yourself one question. Am I going to CRNA school? If yes, do your ICU time. Get your experience, shadow CRNAs, apply to programs. That $208,000 salary is worth it. The 1.1 year payback period is insane. The $2.3 million lifetime earning difference is life-changing. Get in, get your experience, and get out. 2 years max. If no, think hard about what you actually want. If you love critical care, that's cool. Do it for the passion, not the pay, but you're taking a pay cut in opportunity cost. If you want more overtime flexibility, ICU gives you that option. If you like the 1-to-2 ratios, then it makes sense. But if you think ICU pays more per hour, you're wrong. If you actually want to make more money regardless of the unit, then just move to California. Nurses in many parts of Northern California, even where the cost of living is low, make over $200,000 per year. ICU or Med-Surg, that's over $100,000 more than the national average. Working nights and weekends, that's over $15 extra per hour for nights at Kaiser. Any unit, that's over $25,000 per year. If you get your RN3, that's 5% more for joining committees and teaching, not managing ECMO patients, or do travel nursing. Those AMN rates I showed you, $3,000 per week regardless of specialty. Or go per diem. Work when you want, higher hourly rates, control your schedule. Monica makes $142 per hour as a per diem nurse. Or just do what Monica and I did. Work 20 hours a week and build something else on the side. We will soon be making more from our business than from bedside nursing. As a nursing student, I thought ICU was the pinnacle of nursing. The best of the best, the highest paid, the most respected. I was completely wrong about one of those things. I looked at the data. The actual numbers, the contracts, the pay stubs. ICU nurses are highly skilled. They do have more opportunities. They can become CRNAs. They can float for overtime. They just don't make more per hour. So before you put yourself through ICU orientation, before you spend thousands on certifications, before you sign up for that critical care fellowship, know why you're doing it. For the CRNA path, absolutely worth it. Get in, get out, get paid. For the clinical challenge, I totally respect that. Some people just love the intensity. And for the overtime flexibility, that's a smart move if you use it strategically. But for higher hourly pay, you've been lied to. If you want to see exact salary breakdowns and cost of living information, make sure you download our app, Map My Pay, by clicking the link in the description. Also, click this video here to see how Monica and I make well over $100 per hour.